Hello, everyone. So, I'm trying to live the word enthusiasm, and um, it's kind of like with the word saying, like, yes, let's do this, and say in such a way with an enthusiasm where, to live life with enthusiasm, where you do things with enthusiasm. You do this, you do that, and you go for it, you do it. And that enthusiasm, like when someone talks to you with that enthusiasm where it's like, hey, let's do this, and it's like, yeah, that's such a great idea, let's do it. It's like you just have to listen, you just have to pay attention, and you're smiling and happy to have that, to see that. So that enthusiasm, it's something that we all want in our lives. We all want to be surrounded by people who are enthusiastic about what they're doing, with what's going on in the moment. We want that. And so I'm trying to live that, to apply that, to physically integrate that in my living, in my words, and my actions, and in what I say and how I say it. To live with enthusiasm. And it's to integrate it in a very natural way where I just really have to feel it and really feel into my own skin and see what enthusiasm is like for me in a really real, natural way and natural part of my own expression. And what that is something for me to discover in the moment. And along with that, I am looking at also living the word support and being supportive of other people, because not everyone has access to everything that I have access to. Not everyone is at a stage and a point where they can give themselves things that I'm able to give myself. Because of the nature of how a person's life turned out. Because of what of restrictions and limitations that are outside of their control currently. And so I can do that. I can give that. And it's something as simple as what I say or how I say it. It's something that I know that I can be and give. And so it's more kind of recognizing that I can do it and have the responsibility to do it, and that how great and how wonderful it would be if I do it. Because my way that I've been living is to not be supportive, to not stick my neck out there, to not say anything. The way I've been living has been very quiet, just to myself. But that's not my best. And that's not creating the best life for me and for others. So being supportive is. Giving that to others is. and that enriches my life, and that gives me something. So I'm also busy integrating supportive, which is going to take time to do as well. And another point is me, well, I was working on this point and I already worked on it pretty well. But something that I can share is I would love to do improv comedy. That costs money. I'm already taking singing classes. But improv comedy, that's one of the things that would be really fun. And would be really great. And we'll see if I can make it happen. Maybe I can find some money somewhere, or maybe I just do it. I'll just be going into debt for, not debt, just I will be going to my savings, which for me, my savings, like the way I structure my life is basically I live very simply. I have a tight budget. I still give myself time to indulge. But yeah, I've built up some savings, which I did because I know in this system it's not good to not have savings, because I could crash my car and I need a down payment. And so having a car is a huge expense, and just like your health as well. If you were to have a health problem, that would be a huge expense. And the system does not support you. So I needed to put at least something of a safety that, will mitigate such a possibility. Because the other extreme is just going to debt is just way too bad. So the one thing that I was working on today in my daily application was simply to make sure, well, how much time do I have? What time is it? Okay. So this is like a topic which, well, it's flirting, and it's a topic that it's kind of difficult because there's a point of flirting as reaction, which I know for sure is there. There's no doubt of that, where that reaction has to stop. Then obviously there's that point where you can, let's say, flirt as self-expression, but that requires a level of self-honesty. That requires a level of awareness, which has to be walked, a process to get there. And so far, this is like the first time that I'm actually considering flirting in this way, of something that can be a living expression, like in this specificity, in this level of openness. Because, you first have to go through all the negative shit of the reactions, and why do the reactions exist. Because imagine, like, you don't work on any of these points, then you start a relationship with someone, and then you're just doing your normal life, and you see people, you meet people, and then suddenly you find yourself flirting. And the reason why is because you never dealt with the reactions of flirting. You never sorted the energy out. So this affects everybody, obviously, because this is a system of humanity. It is our collective responsibility and experience. And very basic point, like very, very, very basic point, is simply in general that people feel bad about who they are, like worthless or what have you. And that flirting is more the point of feeling that you're not worthless. And yes, you look for a relationship to give you that, but even with that, it's not enough because it's all energy, and your worthlessness is always there. So then, with flirting with random people you meet, that becomes easy. And the other thing is, for me personally, to have even recognized certain forms of interactions, certain moments as flirting, because I didn't consider this as flirting. Something like walking to a room or walking somewhere and just see a woman and kind of like your eye contact, that is a form of flirting. It's very specific, and it goes back until I was like 9 years old. I remember being a kid and just like seeing another girl, and like I remember one time was even like a road trip where we were just like at a rest stop. It's like, oh, like that's the only other girl there, with her family, at this rest stop. It's kind of like, oh, is she looking at me, kind of thing, Even though you look at the person, it's like, is that person looking at me? That's kind of what you're always looking for, is that kind of, feedback. And you feel like, okay, they like me. Now I can decide if I'm gonna do something, even though they're doing the exact same thing, and they're thinking, oh, he's looking at me, and then he must like me. It's very kind of weird how that happens, where there's no communication, it's all like eye contact, and you don't want the other person to see you looking at them, so you look away if you think they're looking at you when you're looking at them. And that's something that's always been there since I was like 10, whatever. All the years growing up, middle school, high school, all the ages, that's been there. And I didn't consider that flirting, but it is because it made me feel good. And it is through that kind of interaction, with that potential someone who can be my, let's say, partner, my girlfriend, my wife, or my thing. And, and it gives me that energy and that distraction, because for me, what I found is like that point of self-hatred and agony, and just hating myself and feeling that pain of being me, that weight of being myself, and not wanting to be me, and not wanting to be alone with me. So that was one form of flirting, which I only just recognized just yesterday as a form of flirting. So I'm looking at that along with this interaction with this whole worthless self-hatred point that I've been working on in my blogs, I've been sharing. And in addition to that, I recognize there's another form of flirting where It's very obvious because of the change of voice. Because it's like a change of voice becoming much more sweeter and softer, and it's so specific because it's just with this one female, if she's in the room, or whatever, or it's like just me, or you just met someone, and the way you're talking to them, and etc. And as soon as you're not talking to them, you talk to someone else. You're not talking that way. And so that's very obviously a change that happened the moment, a shift in speaking. It's very clear. And then looking at the inner experience of it, there's the anxiety, there's the nervousness, there's all the stuff that I know is connected to all that self-hatred. And then there's obviously that point of, trying to manipulate the person to like you, to be sweet, be sweetened by your sugary words, sugary sounds of you. And, there are times where there are women who I would say hello to in that very sweet way, and I would never say anything else at all. I'd say, how are you? But I would never start a conversation. There's always that flirting where it's just saying hello in that very sweet way every single time and smiling every single time. And women do that a lot, or some women do, It's like, it's very clear that, okay, I don't know you, you don't know me. It's kind of like that mystery, even, is what kind of like fuel the fire a bit, because as you get to know a person, you immediately kind of form a judgment already of who they are. Whereas when you don't know them still, when they're still kind of just an image of someone being very sweet to you and just saying hello to you, then it's very easy to just pretend and just flirt like that. Feel like you're getting attention, feel like you're getting something. It's interesting because I notice when you get to know a person, that kind of drops. Because typically because you're on reactions. Now it would be interesting then, because then at that point of when you get to know a person, there, if you start flirting, then that would be a point of self-will and self-movement, because you have to be able to move yourself without letting the judgment stop you. And it would have to be a decision, would have to be a movement, and it would have to be a point of, well, then there's that point as well, because I've always been someone who rather just, I suppose in a very guy fashion, I suppose, masculine or male, where just, okay, are we in a relationship or are we not? Because that was kind of like how I saw myself and how I knew I stood within, even as a kid, let's say young. But it was more like this flirting stuff that kind of was always like in the background, which I kind of didn't really see and really didn't care so much about. So anyway, there's that point of, I know for sure, like there's been many times where I just say, okay, do you want to be in a relationship or not? And I'm very direct like that, which I think is a very guy thing to do. Whereas supposedly the more romantic thing is to kind of like slowly build it up and like, make it very romantic, which I suppose is more feminine or female, I suppose. So yeah, that's all I got. I'm literally making stuff up in the moment. I'm just sharing what I see. So it's question marks. I do not have all the experience or the answers. And often than not, that doesn't matter as long as you trust yourself and you try and you just live. And things that are important always is get to know someone and be very clear in what your intentions are. And if you're gonna ask something or create something, you ask or create very clearly. That something is always good, that structure and that foundation. And it's more for me, at least, to make sure I dot all my I's and cross all my T's, and making sure the absolute detail of myself is under my own creation, where there's nothing of me that's being moved without my direction, which includes this flirting, which comes up in moments, which does relate to how a woman can be wearing a kind of perfume that's very intense, or they're dressed very feminine, you know. I mean, you know what that is, I suppose. Or very fancy, or whatever, you know. Or how they talk, like very sweet, or uh, definitely one of the points which I kind of already anticipate or expect is that the more, let's say, stable I am, the more confident I am, which for me just translates into stability and speaking very clearly, um, speaking from my body, having the sound that women do or will like respond or react, and try to, let's say, flirt. And I approach that such moments, or would, with understanding that all people are looking for that validation, are looking because we all of us feel that self-worthlessness, that self-hatred, which is why we try to find, someone to pay attention to us, to give us that and be that for us. And so that's why flirting happens so automatically. And so I have understanding, and I also don't want to take advantage, because it's just systems, it's just energy. And it's best not to fuck around with someone's energy and their systems when you know better and you can take responsibility for yourself. And 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 it's also cool then to remember that people are people, that we're all in our own stage of the process, and to not judge, to always understand, and to always be supportive, like the word that I'm trying to live, and continue to push for self-awareness in however way you can. And be yourself, I think. That's the most important thing, is to be yourself. Because that's what I saw, like, the correction point is in moments of flirting, is to move away from that and just be myself, speak to everyone, let's say the same, quote unquote, but more from that point of being yourself and having that point clear of who you are is what will support you, obviously, within living who you are and being yourself. It's not something that happens overnight. So have patience. Anyway, thank you very much.